Good day, y'all. My name is Isaiah Taylor. Today, I'll be giving you a brief presentation about concussions suffered as a result of playing football and the recent concern by medical experts, coaches, parents, and league officials. It has only been within the last few years that more attention has been shown to concussions that some players have suffered while playing recreational Pee Wee leagues, high school, college, and professional football. In previous decades leading up to present times, there was never a concern with football-related concussions. Players that may have been concussed were allowed to re-enter the game with no issues. A simple, "Are you okay?" from the coach, and a responsive, "I'm good to go, coach," was all that was needed for a coach to send a woozy player back onto the field. On the PBS website, there's a timeline of the National Football League's concussion crisis. Some of the first discussions began in 1994. The commissioner of the NFL at the time, Paul Tagliabue, created the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee and had the team doctor from the New York Jets head that committee up. That doctor, by the name of Dr. Elliot Pellman, did not have any prior experience in the area of head injuries. He had downplayed the situation, and I quote, "The issue of knees, drugs, and steroids and drinking is a far greater problem according to the numbers of incidents," end quote. This just supports the fact that football teams of any level had no great concern for concussions. However, in 1994, two players came forward. Former Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman, who said that he could not remember a big playoff game in 1993 due to taking a knee to the head. In October of the same year, after admitting to several concussions, Merrill Hodge announced his retirement due to concussions. He announced this retirement after a concussion so bad that he could not recognize his spouse or brother for a limited time. In December of 1994, the commissioner tried to convince the public that there was no increase in concussions, labeling concussions, and I quote, "a pack journalism issue," end quote. There was a big move in 1995 when the sports agent of two elite quarterbacks in the NFL held a seminar on the effects of concussions. During this seminar, players sat and listened to medical experts describe the symptoms and dangers associated with concussions. Before that seminar, perhaps players did not know the seriousness of concussions. There was not a disregard for their health and safety, but I would say more of a lack of education. In 1997, there was a new return to play guideline that suggested players be taken out of the game if they had lost consciousness or demonstrated any symptoms of a concussion 15 minutes after they were hurt. That protocol from 1997 is far advanced now. When a player shows any signs of a concussion, there are several tests that are administered before a player is allowed back into the game. It does not end there. They will have to pass those tests with flying colors until they are allowed to play in upcoming games as well. There have been players that have been out for weeks. I say weeks, because they did not pass the standardized concussion test. It has improved so much that after a rough and tumble play, the referee has been given the clearance to have a player exit the game and be tested for concussion symptoms if they believe that that player may have been injured on the play. During the last few off seasons, player safety has been the primary discussion, and rule changes have taken place accordingly. The rule changes have also trickled down to levels below the professional level, such as college, high school, and Pee Wee leagues. According to NFL.com, one of these rules is that players will not lead with the crown of their helmets. Leading with the crown of their helmets when they make a tackle, players will not also strike a defenseless player above the shoulder pad level. This is called targeting. If a player of any level is penalized with targeting, they will be ejected from that game, and depending on the force of that illegal hit, may be suspended from upcoming games as well. There was no such rule in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or early 2000s. That was actually the object of the game. Defensive players wanted to hit offensive players so hard that they were feared throughout the league from the punishment that they would inflict on imposing players. Ronnie Lott of the San Francisco 49ers is one of those players who is still remembered to this day for the fierce hits that he would place onto wide receivers coming across the middle of the field. In addition to defensive receivers, there have been additional rules placed into effect for quarterbacks as well. Defensive players will be penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct, and 15 yards will be marked off if a quarterback is struck in the head area, regardless of the level of force. Any contact to the head area on a quarterback in effort to protect the quarterback will end in a penalty. In addition to rule changes, there have been equipment changes as well. According to an article in USA Today, the Wk6, the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Committee Equipment, will introduce a revised helmet in 2016, which they hope will have a threshold that will reduce the concussion risk. Testing such as drop testing is currently underway for that helmet. Also, according to abcnews.com, the company Rydell, the largest helmet producing company in the country, has already introduced a new helmet which has been used since 2014. It is called the Speed Flex. This new helmet is used to help absorb shock. Some other manufacturers have actually added bullet-stopping Kevlar to the inside of helmets as well. Concussions is finally receiving the attention that it deserved by players, medical experts, coaches, and league executives. Players are finally getting away from that tough guy mentality. This is evidenced by Chris Borland. At the time, he was a 24-year-old rookie with the San Francisco 49ers when he announced his retirement from the game of football. He conducted an interview with a popular sports show called Outside the Lines. He did a thorough research on his own of concussions and the effect it had on the brain and decided it just wasn't worth the risk of his health. During some of his research, he found out that almost 3 of 10 former NFL players may develop some kind of brain condition. For programs below the college level, such as high school and Pee Wee football, there are information sheets on concussions that parents and players must review and sign that they acknowledge the risk of concussions while playing football. These information sheets also have the signs and symptoms to look for at home, because sometimes these symptoms may not arise until the player has gotten home. Youth volunteer coaches also have been affected in the recent concern with concussions. Before coaches in many areas are allowed to coach, they must conduct online training and be certified through NAES, or the National Youth Sports Coaches Association. This training has specific testable block on concussions alone. For youth football, there is also the Heads Up initiative, which stresses and educates coaches on how to teach safer standards of football, such as heads-up tackling and heads-up blocking. It also gives detailed education of concussion recognition, response, and proper equipment fitting to prevent kids from having helmets that do not fit properly, which could also prevent concussions. As a result of all of the knowledge that is out there now and all the attention that concussions is receiving, many parents are questioning whether or not they will allow their child to continue playing football or start playing at all. In a recent online survey, more than half of the parents questioned stated that they were less likely to allow their child to play football due to the fear of their son sustaining a concussion-related injury. Football players, fans of the NFL, family members, of parents of all levels are now aware of the dangers of concussions while playing football. The information was never out there before, but there are all kinds of resources out there now for everyone to become smart on concussions. Players are not going into the sport blind, but they're now smart enough to make their own decision on whether they are willing to take the risk. The fight is only beginning. Medical experts will remain vigilant in their research in concussions, and football officials will continue to implement things such as equipment upgrades and rule changes to add to the safety of all players. We will hope that concussions is minimized in the near future. I thank you for your time.